There are so many questions that I want to ask Muslims. We could go on for hours, but we want to keep it short today and ask 10 questions that Muslims should answer to themselves or to us. Are you aware that the Quran refers to disbelievers as worst of creatures? It says that those who disbelieve in Allah, the Jews and Christians, the polytheists and others, are the worst of creation. Can you believe that Allah hates His own creation so much for refusing to believe in Him? And how would you feel if different religions said the same thing about you? What would it feel like if you were referred to as the worst of creatures just because you did not believe in someone else's religion?
Why doesn't it bother you that all of your apologists are liars? I mean, when they tell you things like the Quran has been perfectly preserved and the Quran has all these scientific miracles and so on, these are indisputably lies. And we catch them lying over and over and over again, and it never seems to bother their followers. So why is that?
Why does the Quran contain stories that are taken from different cultures, from folk myths or from different religions, such as, for example, Dhul Qarnayn, a character found in the Quran that corresponds to Alexander the Great and legends that people told about him? What about the people of the cave, for example? People who went into a cave and slept there for a few hundred years. The information found in the Quran about them is not even very clear, but this is a folk tale taken from Christians, things that they told to each other. These things made it into the Quran because people asked Muhammad about these things. He had no answer. He went away, probably got those answers from somebody, and then told people about these things. And they were then included in the Quran.
Why do you listen to your apologists and scholars when they contradict your God and your prophet? Take an issue like what the Quran says about the Bible. The Quran affirms the inspiration, the preservation, and the authority of the Jewish and Christian scriptures. But your apologists and your scholars tell you that the Bible's been corrupted because they know that the Bible contradicts the Quran. And so, who do you believe here? Do you believe your God and your prophet, or do you believe your scholars and apologists? And every single time you go with mere human beings who are contradicting your God.
Do you know who Yahweh is? Who is Yahweh? Is Yahweh Allah? Is Allah Yahweh? Do you have any idea about this name? Is it not strange that the Abrahamic God, the biblical God, is known as Yahweh because that is His name according to the tradition, according to the text, according to the beliefs. But yet Islam is completely unfamiliar with this name. You are completely lost when it comes to this name. And you should be aware of this name because the Quran itself contains figures like John or Jesus or Elijah whose names praise Yahweh. And according to the Quran itself, Allah gave some of those names. So Yahweh was very important. But you don't know who Yahweh is and what Yahweh is. What is all that about?
Why does your religion claim to respect Jesus when it actually insults Jesus? I mean, you think, oh, well, we're calling him a prophet, so we're respecting him. But if you look at what you actually claim about Jesus, he turns out to be the most epic failure in the history of the prophets. I mean, he came, he won all these followers who converted to Islam, and then everything fell apart because he did such a horrible job. Everything is corrupted. He couldn't win a single lasting convert. And that's what you really teach about Jesus. And so you claim to be respecting him, and yet as soon as we dig beneath the surface, we find all kinds of blasphemy.
What about the Kaaba? In Islam, the Kaaba is extremely important. It is seen as the first house built for mankind in the name of Allah. According to the Islamic narrative, it was an extremely important house. Allah values it so much. It was built for humanity, for the people, to come there and to circle this cube. But yet, when we look at the actual history, we have no historical records, nothing about the Kaaba. Abrahamic religion, biblical religion, and tradition is entirely disconnected from the Kaaba. The very prophets and books that Islam refers to from the past are entirely disconnected from the Kaaba, and all we have is that the Kaaba is a pagan temple adopted by the Muslims.
What do you mean when you say that Muhammad was the greatest man who ever lived, or at least among the greatest men who ever lived? This is a guy who had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl. He took the wife of his own adopted son after causing the divorce by lusting after her. He bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves. He tortured a man for money. He allowed his followers to beat their wives into submission and to rape their female captives and to hire prostitutes. You could make a list of the worst things a human being can do, and Muhammad did a lot of things on the list. So these are normally things we would mean that a good person doesn't do. So what in the world do you mean when you call Muhammad great?
Why do you trust Muhammad? Why do you think he is a reliable prophet? Why do you consider him a final messenger? Islam tells you that he is the final messenger. He is perfectly guided by Allah, the most perfect human to ever walk the face of the earth. But when we look at the reality of things, we see that Muhammad suffered from situations that look like he had mental problems. It looks like he had a brain problem or mental problems, which gave him a lot of suffering. Revelations that he received, which are Quran verses, gave him a lot of suffering, a lot of pain. Why is that how Allah reveals his scripture to Muhammad?
Why do you get mad at us for telling you the truth? Your scholars and apologists spend your entire life lying to you, making things up about Islam to make you believe in it, making things up about other ideologies to keep you from believing in them, and they're constantly lying to you. And then we come along and we say, no, that's a lie. But instead of getting mad at the people who've been lying to you your entire life, you get mad at us for caring enough about you to tell you the truth. Why is that?
As said, there are so many more questions and we could go on forever, but these are 10 questions that we want to ask Muslims. And I think Muslims should ask these questions to themselves before they try to answer us. Have a fantastic day and
stay away from Islam. That's how we roll.